W- What is going on, y'all? Happy Tuesday. It is Policy Watch for Kamala Harris, part three. So she finally unveiled her economic plan last week, and people had questions about it. And the biggest question is, how will she pay for all this? That's the question. How will she pay for all this stuff? What's in her policy proposal, and then the possibility of how she will pay for all this? Because in this interview, she didn't really explain in detail or even provide a good answer to how she will pay for this. She says, basically, it pays for itself because it's a return on investment. So I don't know what she was trying to explain. This is the issue that we see with Harris is that when she's on camera, when she has to answer tough questions, she tends to kind of freeze up or talk in circles, or she don't know much about policies or the economy, so she struggles. So this is going to be her main issue is that when it comes to her policy, how do you explain to the American people what you're going to do, how you're going to pay for it? If they have questions, how will you explain it to them to where they understand and not just talk in circles or make it seem like you know what you're talking about? So if Trump is taking notes, so one way to attack her is just on her policies, not her character, but attack her on her policies. Because right here, you see very clear that she struggles.
Yeah, it's almost done. I mean, there's some little, much of what you've probably heard me talk about before and feel good about in terms of the future and bringing everyone along in that.
You unveiled some economic policies last week.
Yeah.
Can you explain how you're going to pay for those? And can you give us a sense of what other policies you want to unveil going forward?
Sure. Well, I mean, you just look at it in terms of what we are talking about, for example, around children and the child tax credit and extending the EITC. It's at $6,000 for the first year of a child's life. The return on that investment in terms of what that will do and what it will pay for will be tremendous. We've seen it when we did it in the first year of our administration. We reduced child poverty by over 50%. So that's a lot of the work. And then what we're doing in terms of the tax credits, we know that there's a great return on that investment. When we increase home ownership in America, what that means in terms of increasing the tax base, not to mention property tax base, what that does to fund schools. Again, return on investment. I think it's a mistake for any person who talks about public policy to not critically evaluate how you measure the return on investment. When you are strengthening neighborhoods, strengthening communities, and in particular the economy of those communities, and investing in a broad-based economy, everybody benefits, and it pays for itself in that way.
Madam Vice President, CBS News has a new poll shows that you're 3 points up nationally.
All right, so she was asked how would she pay for this, and she kind of struggled to answer the question. You need funds, you need money to pay for things. It doesn't just pay for itself. You have to start somewhere. In order for it to in order for you to see a return, you have to put some money in. That's the same in the stock markets. In order to, buy stock and invest in the stock market, you have to put in money. You just can't say it's going to pay for itself. So if I'm going to buy stocks in Ford or Apple, I just can't sit there and say, well, I'm going to see the return on it because I'm not putting nothing in, so it's going to pay for itself. It doesn't work that way. And right there, we saw how she struggled with answering that question. So just real quick, briefly, this is just a few things that's on her proposal. Okay. First thing is this: combating price gouging on groceries and food by authorizing the Federal Trade Commission to impose large fines on grocery stores that impose excessive price hikes on customers, eliminating medical debt for millions of Americans, possibly by using federal funds to buy and forgive outstanding debt from health providers, capping out the out-of-pocket cost of insulin at 35 a month, for all Americans, limiting Americans' annual out-of-pocket spending on prescription drugs to 2,000, providing up to 25,000 in down payment support for more than 1 million first-time home buyers, calling for the construction of 3 million new housing units over the next 4 years. Next, expanding an existing tax incentive for developers who build affordable rental housing, removing tax benefits for Wall Street investors who bulk buy single family rental homes, preventing corporate landlords from using algorithmic price setting tools to increase rents by large margins, passing a child tax credit that would provide 6,000 per child to families for the first year of a baby's life, expanding the earned income tax credit for lower wage workers by up to 1,500. So in terms of like, okay, if you build up a neighborhood, you have to invest money in that neighborhood. So if you're gonna construct 3 million new housing units, you have to invest money. You got materials, you have to have contractors come out. So you have to pay people to build these homes. So it's not like it's gonna pay for itself. Now she was talking about the child tax credit that will provide 6,000 uh per child to families for the first year of the baby's life. So yes, by giving that much money to the family that has a child, the first year of a baby's life, yes, it's going to prevent that child from being in poverty. Because yeah, you have money for food, clothes, rent, bills, whatever. So it's going to assist and help, but you have to give that money in order to uh basically you have to give them that credit, that $6,000. Okay, you give it to them, so you investing in the family to not be poor, to not struggle. But who's to say that you do get a return on investment? The only thing that you see happens is that the child is not in poverty. Yes, you give the child tax credit. Okay, here's the $6,000. Okay, cool. The family gets it. They can buy what they need. That way, the child is not struggling, not in poverty. So that's a return. But in order to prevent them from being in poverty, you have to give them that money. So in order for someone to buy a house and they need $25,000 down, you have to then buy into some program of some sort. You give them that money as the down payment. That money has to come from somewhere. It's not going to just pay for itself. So I don't know where she got that from or what Harris was thinking about, but something just doesn't pay for itself. That money has to come from somewhere. Um, One of the biggest issues that I have with her policy proposal is removing tax benefit for Wall Street investors who bulk buy single family rental homes. I think that it should not be allowed for private equity firms, these Wall Street investors, to just come in and buy rental homes. They should not be allowed to do so because as a result, they're also raising up the prices on these homes and rent as well. So that's one issue that I have with this plan is just that main issue for as private equity firms, Wall Street investors should not be able to come in and just buy up houses. Maybe commercial property, okay, that's cool, but they should not be able to just come in and buy up houses like that. These houses should be for residents only, people that's going to actually buy these houses, not someone that's looking to invest and just collect rent and a mortgage payment. So that's the question of how would she pay for all this, these things that she want done. She says that it's going to pay for itself. It's some sort of return on investment because, for example, the child tax credit would provide 6,000 per child. Um, but when you think about it, they're having to give them money to not be poor. So here's the money for you to be able to buy what you need. This is our investment into you so you don't be poor and you're not struggling. And somehow this helps your family. Now, that 6,000 doesn't help the community. It just helps that child, that family to not be poor. In order to help that neighborhood, that community, you have to invest money into that area. So that money has to come from somewhere. Um, I'm assuming that one way she want to pay for all this is just raise corporate tax. I don't know how that's going to happen. It says Harris proposes raising the corporate tax rate to 28%, rolling back Trump law. It says right here, Harris spokesman James Singer told NBC News that she would push for a 28% corporate tax rate. Right. This would put money back in the pockets of working people and ensure billionaires and big corporations pay their fair share. So I'm assuming that's how she would pay for all these things that she want done. But the question is, can you really push for a higher tax rate when Trump wanted something lower? Right? It's you're kind of in a tough spot because you got so many billionaire donors that donate to your party, these big companies that give you money for your campaign. Would you dare tax them? Okay, you giving me all this money, so here's your reward. Let me raise up your taxes real quick because we need these programs that I want. So as a result, I'm going to tax you for what I need. Can she do that? Will the donors be okay with this? That's the question. Will the donors be okay with her raising up taxes on them just so she can give money to poor folks? That's a good question. Will she do this? But something just can't pay for itself. And I hate how people kind of made it seem like she said something that was so great. It was just elaborate and so smart. And I saw the interview. I'm like, something just can't pay for itself. That money has to come from somewhere. And she struggled with trying to explain how would she pay for her policies. So she couldn't do it. She struggled with this. Now her proposals, they are not a bad thing. I get the focus right now is the lower middle income people. I get that. But it's gonna cost you some money to do it. It won't be a few million or a billion. It is gonna be up over a trillion easily. For you to be able to pay for what you want, that money has to be pulled from somewhere so you can get this done. So you won't tax us, people that's in the middle to lower class, it'll be messed up in order to pay for all this. She taxed the very people that she wants to help. That'd be messed up. But can she really raise the corporate tax to 28% when Trump wanted it to be lowered down? Will her big donors, the big companies, be okay with this, being able to take money out of their pocket to give it to poor people that struggle? It's difficult. You're in a tight spot, man, because America, for the most part, America has always been this way. You have the super wealthy, the rich, you got the upper class people, middle class, lower class people. And for the most part, no one really cares about the poor people like that. They'll have programs, they'll have these programs funded, but again, this money has to come from somewhere. It's not just out of thin air. You just can't do an interview and say, well, it's going to pay for itself. And the example that you use is the child tax credit as the example, but you leave out everything else. How are you going to pay for the 25,000 in down payment support for more than 1 million first-time home buyers? How are you going to do that? As far as being able to construct 3 million new housing units over the next 4 years, how are you going to pay for that? These are fair questions that people have. So when she was asked the question about paying for this stuff, she couldn't respond. So as a leader, you have to be able to know what you're talking about in terms of the economy, basic economics. You have to know what you're talking about. You just can't be on camera and just say the first thing that comes to your mind. If she was smart, she would have just came out and said, "Look, the best way to pay for all this is to raise the corporate tax because we can't tax the people that we're trying to help. We can't make them pay more taxes. So that money has to come from somewhere. So I propose raising the corporate tax to 28%. Billionaires, these big tech companies, they have to pay more money. But there's a but there. They also donate to my party. And that's the dilemma. These same people that I want to tax, raise the taxes on, I know they can pay it. Those same people donate to my party. So I know that they will feel some kind of way if I turn to them and say, "Thank you for being able to donate to my party, but I have to now raise your taxes to pay for all my policies that I have now proposed." This is the issue when you come out to the public and you start throwing out numbers and figures of what you want done in terms of cost. 2,000, 25,000, 6,000. Once you start throwing out these numbers, it's going to be hard to kind of backtrack on it because now you have to kind of figure out what you have to get done and who's going to pay for all this. So that's the dilemma. Now I'm not knocking her economic plan. That's hers. But people are wondering, how will you pay for this? Because it just can't pay for itself. It just can't be some return on investment. The money has to come from somewhere.